Hi and welcome to another installment of Shooting Star. This particular week we're going to focus just on weddings, and specifically we're going to break it down into beginning, middle, and end, and have a question representing each of those segments, and I hope you find it interesting. If not, we'll try it again in a couple weeks. We'll start off with Jillian Zamora. She asks, would you mind walking us through what a typical wedding photo client meeting looks like? I have a tendency to jump right in out of nervousness and I just talk about photography. If you have any tips about breaking the ice and segueing into wedding photography, I was also wondering what you covered during the initial consultation. Basically, the number one thing I want to stress to people who are trying to conduct meetings early on, and something that I struggled with in the beginning, was being confident in who you are. This also parlays in ideally listening to just what the client says. When a client walks into the studio, they sit down, and I'm not immediately talking about myself. I really just want to know everything about them. I want them to start talking because I want to get to know who they are, both independently and as a couple. One of the very first questions I ask is, how did you guys meet? And usually the girl will have a version of the story and then a guy will have a very different version of the story. It's really important to not only hear what they're saying, but read in between the lines. Ask them questions. Show that you're interested in who they are. And then this segues into like kind of showing who they are as their personality start shining through. Then I don't even get into wedding photography yet. I then say or ask, tell me about your wedding. Specifically, I ask, who are the vendors that they're working with? Where are they getting married? If I don't know these things in advance, usually I do, but it's always nice to have a refresher just to create conversation. Once I know all of these things, and I will listen to them, and up until this point, it's probably 15-20 minutes into the conversation where it's just about them. Then once I have a good feeling about what they want and who they are, I can then tailor my conversation to fulfilling their needs and desires. And then I just go in and I give a very basic description about what the day looks like. My very first interaction with them would be the engagement session. I describe what the engagement session would look like. I tell them that in a few weeks, if we decide to work together, I'll send them some engagement session tips. Then I moved into the wedding photography aspect. What should they expect on the wedding day? I walk them through who is my second shooter, how I approach the day, what's my technique, what's my style, things like that. And I ask them, do you have questions? I also have albums out. I have a projector and a screen showcasing imagery. It's just a conversation. It's not a sales meeting for me as much as it is an opportunity to hear who they are and what they want. That's kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope it kind of gets you right where you want to be. Errol Yurkuran asks, can you share your thoughts on how much you move around during the actual ceremony? For example, do you move freely during the ceremony and capture pictures in spite of potentially being a distraction? Or do you stay in one place during the ceremony while JD or your other second shooter, it's only ever JD, covers the pictures on the opposite side of the ceremony? Every wedding is different. My goal, and I think that early on somebody gave me this tip, don't get stressed out when you're shooting the ceremony. Have a list of pictures in your mind that you know you need to get. Then, once you have those, challenge yourself to think outside of the realms of things that you've already done. For instance, I know that I need to get a picture of the groom looking at the bride looking at the groom, the father walking the bride down the aisle, the exchange between the father and the daughter going to the groom. I need to get reaction shots from both sets of the parents. I'd love, ideally, to get a shot of the bridesmaids going down this way, the groomsmen's coming down this way, the exchange of the rings, the first kiss, the recessional, all of those things I know I need to get. Once you actually identify those pictures, then you can work within the parameters of what you've been given. Sometimes churches don't let me move. Other times, if it's a garden ceremony, I can put on my 7200, I can stand at a distance and get the nice types of detail shots that I want. So there isn't a hard and fast rule, but I do take creative liberty to move where I'm about, but I'm always, always conscious to know, ideally, a photographer shouldn't be seen because you don't want to be a distraction. You want to be an added element to the day. I actually think that it's a great compliment when somebody can come up to you and say, you know what, I didn't even notice that you were there during the ceremony. That's great. That's what I always strive for, and I think that we should all strive for that same thing too. Lastly, Lori Carbone Chapaldi asks, I'm curious how you would handle a situation where a potential client wants to remove a part of the contract, specifically related to the model release, because they do not want their photos used in an online capacity. Would this be something that you're interested in or compromise, or would it cut into your business model too much? Well, I actually just dealt with this not too long ago. I actually do explain to the clients in advance that part of the experience, part of what I want to parlay to them is the ability for them to share their images on an online capacity. If I don't think that they want the same things that I want, clearly it's not a match for us. If I can't use clients' images online, I don't think it's a good move for me. I'm not saying for other photographers, but for my specific business model, how I move my business, how my trajectory, what I ideally want is a client who wants to share their images the same way that I would want to share their images. If we're on different pages, it's up to me to educate them well in advance. This is a conversation that I should be having with them far before the booking has even happened. If for instance, you've already booked the wedding and the client does not want their images online, totally adhere to what they want. But use it for future reference that ever before you engage with a client and have them sign a contract. You should not be taking out things from your contract that you're not comfortable with as a business person. I hope this helps. I hope you have a wonderful week and stay tuned for next installment of Shooting Star. Thanks. Stay fabulous.